I don't know if I really want to know what it's like to be a rat. Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Angela and today a spoiler-free review of King Rat by China Miéville. This is China Miéville's first novel from 1998. And yeah, it's already a bit of tour de force that also shows a lot of the features that we know from other Miéville novels. The plot is, yeah, a mashup of perhaps urban fantasy, murder mystery, and yeah, some legends, myths that are thrown into the mix. So this book opens with us encountering Saul. Saul has just broken up with his girlfriend and he has moved back in with his father, who he doesn't get along with, and yeah, they have lots of rows. The father is kind of like a staunch communist and he tries to convince his son since he was a teenager that he should show an interest in communism. He gives him Marx's Communist Manifesto as a birthday present when he was 16 or something like that. And the son just doesn't want to be kind of like engaged with this. It's kind of like his rebellion against his dad. No, I can't do what my father likes. I can't like that myself. This is so uncool. And yeah, so since he's moved back, they have tons of rows. And the book opens with Saul coming back one night late, and he comes into the flat and he hears the telly, but he can't hear his father, and he thinks, sure, he left the telly on and has gone to bed or is asleep in front of the telly. But he can't be bothered to kind of like look into the living room and turn the telly off, but he just says, yeah. He goes to his room, falls asleep, and then is very rudely awakened by the police, who drag him out of bed and into a police cell, because his father has been found plastered to the pavement below their apartment windows. And yeah, the question is, did he jump, so commit suicide, or was he pushed? And because all the neighbors say that Saul and his father didn't get along, the police is very readily willing to believe that Saul killed his father, and so he finds himself in jail. And in jail, this mysterious figure makes an appearance that introduces himself as the King Rat. Yeah, as I say, it's a mysterious figure represented in human form, but obviously not really human. And this is how this story starts. Genre-wise, as I said, this is kind of like a mix-up between, yeah, it's urban fantasy, but it's not. It has a bit of a police procedural in it. It has a bit of a murder mystery aspect to it. But it's also like a young person's book, because we follow also Saul's friendship group. And yeah, that brings us into kind of like a music subculture of London, because one of his friends, Natasha, she's like a DJ composer who's into a music form called jungle, which also then plays more and more a role as the book progresses. So we have that aspect. As I say already, right, with this first novel, China Miéville kind of like introduces this disrespect for genre boundaries that will be then one of his trademarks later on. The other aspect of this book is that it's partly a retelling of a German legend from the Middle Ages, the Pied Piper of Hamelin. In this story we have, the rat catcher piper figure who is commissioned by a city to rid it of all those rodents that are around, which he does successfully by playing his flute and then leading them into the river Weser, where they all drown. And then the city refuses to pay him in full, and as punishment, he plays the flute again and catches all the children, leads them into the mountains, into a cave, and the cave is then sealed over, and the children are then enclosed in this cave. And partly Rat King is a retelling of this story. So this story is woven into this murder mystery. It's woven into kind like Soul and his encounter with King Rat. But it's also not the only legend that we find. There is Lob Lob, the bird king, that makes an appearance as well. And we also have a West African trickster figure, Anansi, who is represented by a spider. So there are different, let's say, animal king legends that are woven into each other and that form kind of like some type of, I wouldn't even say back plot, but another plot line, another plot arch that is in this novel, King Rat. I said already that this is, in some respect, quite a young person's book. Miéville was 22 when he wrote King Rat. And as I say, we follow partly this friendship group of young people that Soul was part of. But it's also surprisingly mature in some of the themes that are explored in this novel. I mean, there is, of course, the whole theme of music, and this music subculture club scene that we're introduced to, which I presume does not exist anymore. Now, this novel is set in the 90s. It was almost a little bit of a nostalgic throwback for myself, because I worked for a while in the 90s in London. But it describes a London that is gone in many, many respects. So we have that aspect. But when it comes to other themes apart from music, and of course then creating and being a creator, and this is kind of explored with Natasha, this DJ composer figure. Again, something that we will find in other Miéville novels. I think almost all of his novels have some type of a creator figure that is partly, but only partly, stand in, of course, then for the author, and exploring some, let's say, aesthetical concepts. So apart from that, we look at identity, especially Soul. Soul finds out a lot of things about himself that he might not be so happy about. But we're also exploring this idea of the animal inside us, because Soul, as the novel progresses, turns more and more into a rat. And this is exquisitely done. It's kind of like played out mainly with smell, but also taste. Food plays a big role in this novel in a not so good way. There are some really gross scenes when it comes to food. Garbage plays a big role as well in this transformation that Soul undergoes. And also the reference text for this is quite obvious as well. It's Franz Kafka's Metamorphosis. And China Miéville has said in several interviews that he values this text enormously, that he's read it, reread it numerous times, and he says, each time I reread this story, I find something new, something unexpected. But the novel also explores struggle of power, especially with the figure of King Rat, and his status is very much linked to power, or the lack thereof. It also looks at questions of redemption, at least as far as a category of redemption has actually still any meaning for somebody who, by all intents and purposes, is a rat. And then, of course, the question of, or better, the insight that most of our ethical concepts are, of course, human-made. And what happens if we strip that humanness away? What's left, basically, is another question that this novel asks. The characters of this novel are very well developed. They're very relatable, especially Saul, despite his transformation into a despicable animal, an animal we consider vermin. Saul stays very relatable for the reader. And that goes for other characters of the novel as well. And of course, the city already is a character in its own right. We explore the city from its rooftops down to the sewers and everything in between. We look at more affluent parts of the city, but also at kind of like very impoverished parts. So the city looms very, very big in this. And yeah, as I say, now it has hints of urban fantasy, but it's not quite urban fantasy either. So this book, I think, could appeal, of course, to Miéville fans. If you have read other Miéville books and haven't read this first one, I think it's still worth your while to read it. As I say, it's interesting to see all the elements that are already present in this very first book. But I also think it might appeal to people who like Neil Gaiman, especially books like Neverwhere or American Gods. It's quite similar in some of the structural elements to those books. And as I said, I think it can also be interesting for people who like urban fantasy, because it has quite, an urban setting, and also, how shall I say, it's not the classical urban fantasy where you have the lone detective kind of like going through the city. So there is a detective figure in this book as well. It's, as I say, part police procedural. I think it could appeal to, quite a wide range of readers. And as always, if you're still here, thank you for watching, happy reading, and all the best.